We discovered that after the Great Recession, the self-employment rate in UK is getting higher instead of the previous recovery phases that the self-employment used to go down. Okay, so we are trying to explain the different evolution of the self-employment rate in base of the opportunity entrepreneurs and the necessity entrepreneurs. And we have discovered that actually the evolution of the self-employment have changed from the previous years that we have data available. So it's important to know that we want to know what are the reasons behind this change, and we have to continue working and researching on it. But it's probably that the evolution of the development of the new economic gig economy sector, and probably freelancing and the precariat forms of self-employment has driven to a new way of self-employment in the UK.
And so what are the implications for your findings if you've still got more work to do?
Yes, it's important to know that even if now in the UK the rate of employment is almost the highest, if we still have a high self-employment rate, it means that maybe the forms of self-employment are getting more precariat. So it's important to know that maybe we have to regulate some the way and the protection to the self-employed people because of the development of the gig sector and freelancing. The self-employed are less protected that they should be.
And so is that your key takeaway, or are there any other really important facts from the research that people should know about?
Yes, actually we have not. We have to continue our research to get to know what are the reasons, really the reasons. So we are thinking to incorporate some micro data to evaluate the decision of the people when they want to get self-employed. And this is the next step. We thought that probably the main reason behind this change is because of the freelancing and gig sector. But we have to continue working at some panel data and some micro data to actually prove that this is the real reason behind.
We found that there are differences between those self-employed who have employees and those who don't, and these differences were observed when it comes to education, age, gender, migration background, or just a situation when I live with a partner. So these all findings show that the self-employed with and without employees might be different animals that should be targeted by policymakers and researchers differently.
And what are the practical implications from these findings? You know, having seen that there are various perhaps segments within the research.
There is a very quite simple observation for the policymakers that, especially when we want to address different groups of self-employed when it comes to entrepreneurship policies, then we need to take into account the differences between those two groups, because if we want to boost high-growth entrepreneurship, then we should probably take into account characteristics of self-employed who have employees.
If you were to perhaps sum up the study, what would be the three key findings, or one or two key findings of that research that have really struck home?
So firstly, both of these decisions of having employees are important not only from research and policy perspective, but job creation is often associated with a larger proportion of capital, not only human, but also the other forms of capital. And thirdly, these groups need to be addressed by community.